Greetings, greetings, family. Sister Shanice in the house. Welcome, welcome to the Sister Shanice Show. Yes, it is Wednesday, the 25th of February, and I'm coming to you live and direct via YouTube. And as always, it's a privilege and it's an honor to be able to address you, our magnificent, wonderful audience. Today is episode 5 in my series of African history. I'm debunking and demystifying our Asian African history. Yes, indeed. We have, over the series been traveling across continents, across centuries, and we have been looking at the messages that our ancestors have left for us in stone. And so I'm really excited about being able to continue this episode with you as we journey over continents and centuries and begin to unravel and uncover and look at face to face some of the magnificent monuments that our ancestors left behind. And so it's going to be another great series, another great episode in the series today. And thank you so much in advance for watching the entire series, and also for sharing, sharing the knowledge, sharing the information, because as I say, each one teach one. We've got our beloved Kwame Oboje in the house. I have missed you, Brother Kwame. Welcome, welcome. Great to have you back in the house, beloved. Thank you so much for the rise up as well. We've got Betty in the house. Beautiful Betty. Rise up, Sister Betty. Great to have you in the house as well. Thanks for being the first ones through the door. Okay, you know how to do. I'm going to grab a copy of the link, and then I'm going to be sharing that just for a little while in the background, and then we are going to be heading straight into our live show and live conversation today. And family, as you can imagine, a lot of work and a lot of effort has gone into today's show. And so I really hope that each and every one of you get, so much from it that you'll want to share, you'll want to have the conversations about our history, you'll want to, forward the information across your WhatsApp groups, you'll want to, take sound bites and snippets from the presentation and share it across your networks. Do what you want. This is, knowledge and information that our ancestors have downloaded to me, and I'm privileged and honored to be, the recipient of this information, because this is our beautiful, beautiful, wonderful history that they are speaking to me about and that I'm sharing with you today. So please do help and please do assist me in that share. So family, how has your strong been? Some say weak, some say strong. How has it been for you? I certainly hope it's been a great one. Oh, we've got Duff in the house as well. Rise up, rise up. You haven't been here for a while. Why not? He says, but just clicked and the like, so I wouldn't forget. Thank you so much. And if you haven't already done so, can each of you please do the same and click the like, because they say the more likes, the more clicks you get, the more it's likely to show up on the algorithms, and the more likely YouTube will share it and help with the assistance in getting this, juicy information about our magnificent history out there to our entire family, because that's at the end of the day what we want. We want our people to be able to, get the knowledge of our former greatness, because once we realize how great we were, hey, we will realize how great we are, and the history books have been trying to deny us that history, haven't they? They've been trying to whitewash and erase our magnificent, glorious past. But, once you have the knowledge, family, then it can't be erased. And I just wish that I had this knowledge of our greatness years ago, decades ago, and this is why I really hope that our young people get this knowledge as well. So they don't have to go through school, college, and university, like I did, feeling as though we haven't achieved and haven't accomplished anything, in the world, when the reality is that we were the original people of the world. We were the ones who, invented, created, engineered, brought about the sciences, the writings, mathematics. We are the great ones. We're the originators and they are the imitators. And I'm only just finding all of this out in my older years. Of course, I came across many African history books earlier on in life, but it's not until you really start doing the digging for yourself, it's not until you really start doing the research for yourself, that you begin to realize the enormity of our history and the extent to which we have contributed so much to the world. And family, we are magnificent, we are awesome. We really, really are as a people. Yes, we've been through more than our fair share, and many of us are still going through. And in parts of the world out there, it just breaks my heart to even begin to think about the extent to which our people, continue to suffer and are suffering. But despite all of what we've been through, family, it may not look like it, but we are rising. Yeah, and tomorrow will be a better day. I mean, we can, put an end to this suffering if we were all, as Africans, just to come together in unity, in strength, in oneness, and in like-mindedness. We could put an end to the suffering. But the reality is that because we don't control our education system, because we don't control our media, because we don't control, the powers that be, we're not in control of the minds either of those who are in power, then those who don't look like us, don't like us, can continue to manipulate us, can continue to feed us misinformation, can continue to come up with policies and programs that require us to work, in their organizations, their institutions, and so they get all of the benefits, of our mind and our creativity and our genius, But when we start establishing our own institutions, our own organizations, and once we start taking control of our media, control of our education, so that all of us are on the same page in terms of our direction of travel, in terms of what we need to accomplish, what we need to do, in order to rise ourselves up. When we're on that level, family, and we've taken back control of all of the systems that are informing and indoctrinating us. Once we have control of that, we start educating our children about their former greatness, their wonderful ancestors, our inventions, our creations, all of what we've accomplished in the past. Oh my days, family, it's going to be a new day. It's going to be a new day, and that new day isn't too far away either. That is the great news that I want to leave with you today, if nothing else. The new day, the dawn is coming. The new day is coming, family. And very soon, we are going to be, back where we ought to be as Africans, the ones who are running the world. Because when we run this world, family, it's going to be a better place. If we were in charge of the world, the world would be a better place, don't you? Oh my gosh, it would be a wonderful, wonderful world. It would be a world where nobody is hungry. It would be a world where everybody has opportunities to shine. It would be a world where, it's fair, where resources are distributed equally, where, there's no slavery, there's no, the medicines that we have is there for the good of the people rather than the good of certain institutions. It would be a wonderful, wonderful world where the wealth is shared and where, we as a people are able to enjoy the benefits of our hard labor and the fruits of the land. it would be a wonderful world. And so we've got to get back to that place where we are the rulers, we are the creators, we are the inventors, we are the ones in charge, we are the ones who are running the institutions and organizations, we are the ones, family, who are, powering the world. And we're doing that in fairness, we're doing that in a spirit of unity, and for the betterment of man and the human race. That's where we got to get to, family. We got to get back to that place, don't you think? I certainly hope that you agree with me. What are your thoughts on that? Should we be the ones running the world? And if we were the ones running the world, what do you think our priority ought to be? What do you think, some of the first three things, we ought to do if we were to run this world? We know what others who don't look like us are trying to do. But, if this was a better world for everybody, wouldn't it be, just absolutely fantastic, blacktastic? Yeah, I'm sure it would be. I've been sending out this link, and I didn't even check the link before I sent it out. Let me just hope that it actually reaches the site. Yes, it does, and I can see the comments coming in. Rise up again, brother Kwame Aboje. Much love to you. He's rising up our young brothers. He says our young brothers aren't only about sport and music, but engineering and architecture plus medicine. Absolutely, and the young minds, are just, their imagination is not limited to the extent that, the minds of the elders are. So rise up the young people. Africans did all from architecture to philosophy. Absolutely. Yes, indeed. Rise up, Sister Betty, as well, rising up and welcoming our brother Aboje. Yes, it's wonderful to have him back in the house. And Dora Fell is in the house as well. Rise up, Dora Fell. Yes, indeed. Be first, brilliant first, black first, magnificent first. Rise up, rise up. And Debuff is in the house as well. Rise up and welcome, welcome. Okay, I'm not going to dilly-dally, family. I'm not going to delay because, to be honest, I do have an engagement after today's show. And so I'm going to have to wrap up a little bit earlier than usual. So I do want to try and, get through to some of the meat of the message that I've got for you today. Yeah, as I said, this is a new series. We're going across the continents, we're going across the centuries, and we're looking at, the messages in the stone that our ancestors have left behind for us. We are debunking and demystifying our Asian African history, and we're giving our ancestors back the credit that they deserve, for what they've contributed to the world and society. And, our ancestors have left so much information out there for us to find during our times. And, it's just wonderful, wonderful that, we are in the time that we are in. There was a time a couple of hundred years ago when we weren't allowed to read, we weren't allowed to, research, we weren't allowed to, therefore, look in the books. We wouldn't have come across the monuments. We wouldn't be, finding out about this wonderful Asian history that we've left behind. So this really is a new day, and I'm just so excited that we are in the time that we are in. So hold on to your seats, family. I'm going to be sharing the screen very, very soon so that we can jump straight into our presentation. We are, at episode 5. It's just going so quickly. We're at episode 5, and there's just so much family that I want to depart and leave with you all. And so let's get the show on the road very, very quickly. I've just got to set up the layout and hope that it works first time. Sometimes it does, sometimes I have to do it a couple of times before it does what it's meant to do. But I saw it though, we get there in the end, don't we? All right, let's take a look at this and see if it looks like it's going to work for me. Okay, so I've just clicked share. As you come through the house, yes, please do remember to give me a like, give me a thumbs up, and let me know that let me know where in the world you're actually viewing me from. No, that's not the right layout. It's giving me the entire screen. I don't want you to do that. Okay, let's stop share and let's try again. Okay, it does this to me sometimes, family. Maybe it's because I went into slideshow first, but let me do the process again, and let's see if it gives me the right. Let's go over to advance. Let's click share button. Let's click the right window that I want to share. Okay, I think this one is it. Let's go. Let's go. I'm keeping it moving. Get back moving. Okay, presenter view. Let's see if it's going to work for me this time. Why is it doing the whole screen? It's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to yeah, sometimes it does play around a little bit like that. And let me see what comes up on the screen over here. Let me have a look on YouTube. Let's see if it's coming up. No. Right, so if you're just joining me, thank you so much. Sister Shanice in the house. I'm just setting up the presentation and trying to get it to do what I want it to do rather than it doing what it wants to do. And as soon as I've managed to get that sorted out, we are going to be going straight into the presentation today. Sometimes it takes more clicks than other times. It looks as though it gives me the impression it's ready to do the advanced settings that I want. It keeps switching windows. Get back to the window that I want. Okay, let's try again. Okay, alrighty. Thank you for bearing with me. We are about to start episode 5. I'm just trying to get the advanced settings, set as background. Yeah, I want my slide as a background. I want me in the little corner. Okay, that bit's done. And it's just the advanced settings that's messing around for some odd reason. Let's try again. Hopefully this time this will be it. This is looking promising. Presenter view. I've clicked it already, but because there's a lot going on the computer, it takes a moment or two before it recognizes what it needs to do. But we are getting there. Oh, sister, we got Sister Kev in the house. Rise up, Sister Karen. Great to have you in the house. She says, welcome, kings and queens. Get your eyes and ears ready. Bring your children, family, and friends with you to watch these Sister Shanice sessions. Thank you so much, Sister Karen. Rise up, welcoming you all the way from the United States of America. And she says, we as a people need to stick together, absolutely, so that we can run our blacktastic world. Yes, agree with you, Sister Karen, absolutely. So family, if you're just joining us today, we are already at episode 5. We've been traveling across continents and centuries, and we've been looking at the messages that our ancestors have been bringing to us that has been written in stone. We have been debunking and demystifying some of our ancient African history. And in this series, we've been from Africa to Asia, and the stones are still speaking with us today. So in case you've just joined, family, we've had a phenomenal series. We've had 4 phenomenal episodes already, okay? And please do go and check out those videos. So the big question is, are we ready to hear what our ancestors have to say to us? What if the world's ancient monuments aren't separate mysteries, but pieces of one forgotten human story, our story, carved across continents? What if the widespread depiction of ancient deities with black skin, broad noses, full lips, and curled hair is neither accidental or symbolic. Wow, 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 family. We're going to be going through a series of episodes. In fact, we've already started in episode 1 of our new series on the Asian African history. We've already traced the epic migration journey of our indigenous ancestors across the world. And we looked at the early African migration history story. And we provided scientific evidence that showed that Africans are the indigenous people to every continent on the world and in the world. We are the indigenous people of every continent in the world. We laid the foundations for a larger investigation right from the outset, you know, and this foundation that has been laid, family, is going to be challenging the idea that Africa was isolated. It's going to challenge the idea that Africa was passive or peripheral to the world. Instead, it asks us to consider a far older truth, and that truth is that we as Africans were explorers, builders, navigators, scientists, and spiritual architects of the ancient world. And wow, 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 it's us as Africans, even today, across the various continents, who are still the innovators, the architects, the engineers, the inspiration of so much cutting edge technology, music, and so many other fields, family. We're walking in the footsteps of our ancestors. Then in episode 2, we provided evidence showing that we as Africans in the ancient world were the masters of the seas. We showed how we reached the Americas and beyond in ancient times. And we also showed how we used the seas as our highways, and how it was that we mastered the oceans, and the knowledge that we had of the currents and how we were able to navigate the seas, and that we did so with intention. We didn't arrive and turn up places by accident. No, no, no. You know, we understood navigation. We could read the stars. We could read the direction of travel, of the currents, and we would just, you know, like the surfers do, just jump the waves, and it would take us to where we knew we wanted to go. Then in episode 3, we started to explore Africa's global spiritual legacy and how African spiritual systems shaped the ancient world. Yes, you heard me right. How it was the African spiritual systems that actually shaped the ancient world. And we looked at some of the ancient deities that predated Christianity and Islam and all of the other modern religions. And we went back to a time when the deities were depicted as black people with black skin, broad noses, full lips, curled hair. We went back to those times, family. And it was a time when the deities reflected the people who first developed and organized ourselves spiritually, theologically, and it was part of our civilization when, you know, our spiritual essence and our spiritual understanding and our spiritual way of life was part of our essence and our civilizations. In episode 4, we continued, we expanded on some of the ancient sacred images from China, Afghanistan, and Cambodia and India. And we looked closely at some of these statues and icons, and we were noticing some striking similarities, such as, you know, the dark pigmentation of the figures, the tightly coiled hair, you know, or the textured hair that resembled that of us as Africans, the broad facial features, you know, the broad noses, the lips. We were looking at these monuments, and we were also looking at the similarities between the way the monuments were constructed in different parts of the world as well. Powerful, powerful session that looked at our beautiful, dignified Asian African ancestors and how they depicted themselves in stone. And today we are at episode 5, and we are continuing our journey, family, across the continents. And we're going to be looking at centuries-old spiritual master builders, constructions in stone. And we're going to be coming face to face again with some of these forgotten faces as a part of our ancestral legacy. Okay, so it's going to be another very interesting session. So if you're not a subscriber, hey, what are you waiting for? Please do subscribe, like, and of course share the video for me afterwards, because in so doing, you will be helping to boldly, uncover our history. You'll be helping to share the knowledge of the history that we're uncovering here, and you'll be helping to restore, us to our former greatness as well, and to especially try and reach our young people with this knowledge as well, because in here we're having, we're producing evidence of our history, our true global legacy. And we're the only ones who are going to be able to bring about the truth. If we want to change the narrative, then we've got to tell our own stories, okay? And that's what we're doing here. We are interpreting our history for ourselves, boldly so as well. And I'm able to do that because I am a graduate of Dr. Winters's Afrocentric Researcher Program, the Afrocentric Research Program that develops individuals to enable us to fearlessly go where other researchers are afraid to go, to fearlessly claim what other researchers are afraid to claim. And so we are, as Afrocentric researchers, unapologetically, examining history from an Afrocentric and Afrochronological perspective, okay? So we do it. Rise up, Dr. Clyde Winters, rise up yourself every time. More love, more strength, and a long life to you. And just in case you didn't know, I'm the author of 6 books. They're the front covers of my books, and the titles of them are there on the screen. And my most recent book is entitled Hidden in the Shadows of Ancient Britain, an Erased African History. Where is it? Restored. There it is here on my screen as well. Please do get a copy from Amazon, or if you're in the UK, you can get a copy from our bookseller, Brother Emmanuel, okay? But yeah, please do support the works by getting a copy of my book. And not only are you supporting the works when you get that book, but you're gonna uncover so much information about our hidden history. And that particular book focuses on the ancient history that we have as Africans in Britain. Yes. Oh my days, that we have tens of thousands of years of history in Britain. It's probably even more than tens of thousands, and it probably goes into hundreds of thousands of years. We are uncovering more history year on year that we have in Britain that has been hidden from us. So you don't have to do the research. I've done it for you. Just get the book, check out the sources, and just expand on the works family. So yeah, those are my books, and I'm also I've also written a couple of academic papers, 2 academic papers. The first one, The Omission of an Ancient African Irish Population from Contemporary Western Education. Again, big up Dr. Clyde Winters. That's the piece that I did on his program. That was the assignment that was set, that we produce an academic paper and submitted to Academia EDU, which I did, and wow, it just went down a blast. Professors from all over the globe, commenting, reading it, wow. And my second paper that I did is entitled Recovering the African Roots of Gaelic Royalty, the Egyptian Queen Scotia's Legacy in the Histories of Ireland and Scotland. Therein the title, family, you should know what that is all about. Yes, indeed. It's about Queen Scotia, who has an incredible history that's linked to Ireland and Scotland that many of us don't even know about because we're not taught in school, college, and university. But the good news is that you can get a free copy of these academic papers. You just go to Academia EDU and you can download them, okay? All right, so let's go into session. Ooh, let's go into our first slide for today's presentation. Let me see if this works. I've got a little bit of music that I thought would be nice as background. And you can download them. Oh, that's not supposed to happen. It's supposed to hear you there. Okay, so I'll leave that box off. So family, for centuries, we have been taught a version of history that began in Europe and treats Africa as primitive, a place where uncivilized people came from, but not a place where there was advancement, where there was engineers and scientists and people who dealt in medicines. That's not the portrayal of Asian Africa at all. But we're going to be uncovering the fact that the stories that we have been told about Africa has been far from the truth. They've erased a lot of the truth about Africa. Thailand, Vietnam, the Americas. Wow. So we're going to be asking ourselves today, what is the world's ancient world? What if the ancient world was far more connected than we've been taught? What if our ancestors didn't restrict themselves to just Africa? Looking at pieces of unforgotten human African story, carved across continents, mountains carved and caves painted and temples raised. What if they all point to one shared past, but only now beginning to see? What if they were to us? We, their descendants. What could their messages be? Drop a note in the chat. Our ancestors are leaving clues for us in these monuments. What could their messages be? From Africa to Asia, the stones are still speaking. The question is, are you meant to hear? So in this series, we're not going to be giving you names. We're not going to be giving you we're going to be dealing in evidence. Those who have eyes to see the evidence will see. Those who have been blinded by the so the evidence that we are dealing with over the course of the series is archaeological, ancient texts, genetics. Sorry about that, family. Eyewitness accounts and so that was a bit of music. Let me see if it works again here. Gonna work? No, I got no music on this one then. Maybe not. Okay, alrighty. Wow, let's look at the messages in the rock. When we look at this image, what are we seeing? What are the messages that are being communicated to us? These are clearly not just random carving in rock face. This is a deliberately created sacred space, carved into rock. Figures have been carved standing upright, indicating upright people, maybe. And then inside the niches that have been cut into the cliff, again, these niches are suggesting maybe protection from a solid spiritual force. They're not randomly made by arches or steps. I think they suggest a safe haven awaits. There are steps maybe that we need to take to get there. And then of course we've got the decorative stonework. It informs us. And this decorative formwork could be talking to us as well, you know? What is the stonework saying to us? What could it be informing us of? It's definitely, I think, suggesting that it's a beautiful place because it certainly has been decorated beautifully. Look at those arches, look at the steps, look at the figurines, you know, and these are colossal images as well of great height. And the bodies are kind of simplified, aren't they? But anyway, they're looking at us. So whoever would come to this sacred space would be looking at these images. And, you know, they would be giving off a calm air. They would be welcoming. And it would be a place maybe where you could feel that you're being watched over, where you're being protected, where you feel that, you know, there are those who, there's people in the spiritual realm who are looking out for you. And so you'd want to visit there for some solitude, maybe to worship, maybe also on another occasion as part of a pilgrimage. And this tells us that the rock itself is being used as a spiritual place, not built from separate blocks either, family. This was actually cut into the living mountain. And this kind of work takes planning. It takes people who believe in wanting to accomplish something together and a community that's committed to leaving something permanent behind. This has been around for thousands of years. And they wanted to create a long-lasting sacred monument. And this goes back to the ancient world, family, when our ancestors were carving into stone. So this required a whole range of sophisticated skills, wouldn't it? It would have required a lot of knowledge, cooperation. It would have required architects. So from this, we know that there were architects who were around thousands of years ago. Oh, look, I can't shut this up now. So back then, we had our architects, we had engineers, because it would have required engineering skills to do something like this. Otherwise, the whole cliff would have just collapsed. If there wasn't proper architectural planning, if we didn't have our engineers, if we didn't have people who understood geometry and had skills in all of these fields, they would not have been able to accomplish, you know, this kind of monument. And look at the proportions as well, you know, and how the people look like, you know, ordinary people. So, and they've aligned the spaces and the shapes, and look at the stairway and the niches. And everything's come to precision. So these are clearly very highly skilled master sculptors. And these master sculptors had advanced knowledge of the stone, how to, you know, carve into the stone, and how to translate their spiritual belief system and their ideas almost into human form. And of course, we can't forget the artisans. You know, these are the ones who would have then handled the finishing touches of these monuments. They would have encoded the spiritual symbolism, and, you know, they may have even painted some of these afterwards. And we know there's been a lot of whitewashing because a lot of these monuments originally had, you know, brown pigmentation. Well, a brown color was used to depict their brown pigmentation. So we know it's possible that these were painted afterwards and may well have been whitewashed. And so behind all of this, all of this incredible work, sat the religious knowledge and the high priests and the guiding figures, the ones who would have been guiding the individuals who were making these figurines and telling them where to place it, how to space it, so that it functioned as a spiritual space. And of course, added to all of that, it would have required organization, it would have required structured labor management, it would have required sophisticated tools. So there would have been tool making industries and experts, and when we start thinking and breaking it down, instead of just looking at, the monuments and the figures themselves, when you start thinking about the engineering works, when you start thinking about, the industries that must have been behind all of this, when you start thinking about the belief system that must have carried these people, to be able to create something like this, the religious knowledge and the belief systems that they had back then, you get to realize this isn't no small achievement by some uncivilized group, but this is the result of a highly advanced nation of upright, civilized people with advanced planning, organization, structure, technical know-how, incredible skills, and of course a culture that they revered and were determined to turn their beliefs into the living stone so that we, their ancestors, would still be able to have that knowledge today. Wow, we should be celebrating our ancestors. And, just imagine, our children growing up with the knowledge of this level of high expertise that our ancestors had. When you zoom in on the facial features of these monumental figures, you will see that they have broad noses, coiled hair, big lips, and features that we would say today are African features. Wow, beautiful, beautiful. Look at these monuments. Okay, this is the next one. Here we are again, meeting some more forgotten faces, face to face. We're going across Africa, now to Asia, and even beyond. And here stand some monuments, more monuments that have been carved into stone, family, carved into mountains. Can we even begin to imagine what it must take to be able to carve such detailed figures and facial features into mountains and stone? Wow. So, we have some monuments here that have been carved into mountains, carved into stone. We've got paintings in some of the caves that we looked at in episode 4. And it's clear that, when our ancestor did this work, it was built to last for eternity, because they knew if they, sculptured these images into stone, that it would last possibly for eternity. Of course, they didn't imagine, some of the people that we've got today that we live amongst that would try and deface so many of our wonderful works. But we're not going to forget these faces, family. We need to look at them. We need to remember them. We need to take pictures of them. We need to draw them. We need to put them in our books, because there are so many of these monuments that have already been lost to us. And, we're in an information age at the moment where we can access information from all around the world without having to go and look ourselves. We can go on the internet. We can go into the museums around the world and take a look at the pieces that they've got on display in the museums without physically going there. We can go to all the countries, all the continents, and we can look at some of the ancient art that exists and the relics that they've got from the days of our early ancestors. So, you know, we can do that, and we need to take advantage of it. Because when we look at these pieces, they're not just showing us art. You know, these are action pieces as well. And they're showing us, you know, we're getting a glimpse into the life of our ancestors during those times, the movement, the belief system, the journey, you know, and we're looking at the faces of some of our ancestors themselves. And, you know, we can see this similar pattern in stone from the Nile Valley to the cliffs of the Bamiyan, from the temples of Cambodia to the painted caves of India that we were looking at in the last episode. And so, you know, those first three are from Cambodia. And as we can see, look at the sacred faces and the sacred works of the ancestors during those times. And these civilizations obviously, you know, weren't disconnected, because when you look at the works that we were doing in stone in Egypt and the works that we were doing in stone in Vietnam, in China, in India, Cambodia, in the Americas, in Mexico, you can see that our ancestors had an understanding of how to create wonderful monuments into stone, and they did that wherever they went. And so, you know, there was some connection there. Obviously, this is further proof that we were connected during ancient times. And, you know, these weren't just isolated structures from an isolated belief system, but it was part of a much bigger African story. So we're going to continue to look at these wonderful, beautiful monuments that have been hidden in plain sight. Okay, rewind. So let's go back to the Ajanta rock cut caves. These are the Buddha caves. And the archaeological records speak for themselves, really. When I was looking into this to try and see if it was a cave or a site that was used for burial purposes, because some of these sacred sites were also used for burial purposes, it seems that this one here, this Buddha cave, was not used for burial purposes, or they haven't been able to find any skeleton remains at the site so far. Because had they found any skeleton remains, and then I would be trying to find any documented scientific reports that talked about any genetic testing that may have happened, you know, to those fossil remains, but there were none. But what we do know about this site, that it was used for ritual purposes, obviously, and it's been dated to the 2nd century BCE, so it's, you know, 2,000 years old, to the 6th century CE. But, you know, that's their estimate. It could be obviously much, much older. So anyway, a couple of thousand years ago, our ancestors, there would have been the monks, the priests, and, you know, all of these, you know, high priests who would have been responsible for the place, who would have been overseeing the worshippers, who would have been, you know, the ones who were maybe conducting some of the services. And so, you know, you can imagine that this was likely to be a very peaceful society where, you know, people had their belief system, because, you know, Buddha was all about peace, wasn't it? And tranquility and harmony. And it was just, you know, such a beautiful, beautiful, you know, spiritual religious system. And so I would imagine that the people would also have been like that. And anyway, the excavations continue here at this site. So we can see these wonderful architectural pieces. There's murals, there's sculptures there. They found inscriptions there as well. I've got to do more research to find out, if any of these inscriptions have been deciphered, and if so, what they say, But there are archaeological reports that mention that they have found things like vessels, coins, and other monastery remains, but, they tend to scatter these findings across different museums and make it hard to trace. But, we continue to look and to try and do the research and see if we can find any documented evidence that tell us about what they've actually found there and where it is. But no human remains, they said, or skeleton remains have been found inside here, the Ajanta Caves. So there's no genetic studies that have been published that we can look at in regards to this. But that's taken to another level. But at the moment, what we can see is, these greater than life-size images that have been carved into the caves here, and evidence of the works of our prehistoric ancestors. And when we go over to Afghanistan, where we was in episode 4, when we were looking at the Bamiyan Buddha carvings, you can see all the way over in Afghanistan, carved into the rock, with these in these niches, in these arches. If we compare the Ajanta rock carvings to the Buddha carving at the Bamiyan site in Afghanistan, there are some similarities that jump out because in both of these places, the mountain or the cliff, it becomes a temple. And the cliff, has been used to carve these giant sacred figures that just stand so tall within these arches, within these niches. And there are the figures facing outward, looking towards the people, looking outward, saying that, we can see, we are the all-seeing great ones, and we are to be respected, and we're to be revered, and we will watch over you, and I'm sure if there were more details that hadn't been, destroyed and defaced, it would speak to us more. But, it looks very formal. Everything here is symbolic, I'm sure. And it's showing, that they are part of the life of the people during that times. And so there would have been a lot of devotion that would have happened here. And, when you look at the size of these monuments, if you look down in the corner here, these are actually, a couple of people looking up at these monuments. So that gives you an idea of the size of the monuments, the enormity of it. Wow. So again, we've got some similarities between the Bamiyan Buddha carvings in Afghanistan and the Ajanta rock carvings over in Asia. So connection. We were connected as a people. Yeah. So both are sacred. So these would have been sacred figures that would have been worshipped. And here we've had, as well, these sacred figures that were being revered. Or maybe it was just a point of contact between the physical realm and the spiritual realm. And maybe underlying all of this, there may have been a mountain where people believe miracles happen. Maybe miracles had happened before, at those sites. Why it was turned into like a shrine almost. Because I'm sure, our African brothers and sisters can tell us about certain places and spaces, rivers by the waters, by certain mountains where maybe miracles have happened, where there's been more than one story. I know in the Gambia, they've got a pool, and it's a fertility pool. And it's said that if a woman is barren and she wants to have children, she'll just bathe in that pool, and then she will go away, and within a short time she will conceive. So, you know, we have these stories that have been handed down from our ancestors, these sacred stories where maybe miracles have happened, and maybe these mountains are also connected to a space where a miracle once happened. And so these caves could belong to a wider story that may have been lost in time, but at the time it was felt that that space needed to be turned into something of spiritual significance. So in our last session, we looked at, you know, some of these sites. We looked at China, we did Cambodia. We're going to go into Cambodia a bit more. We looked at Vietnam. So follow the series. We looked at India. Follow the series. So we're going to go into the Angkor Wat temple now. And what we're looking at there is the guardian Deva. So the Angkor Wat is located in Cambodia on the continent of Asia. And it's got Thailand, as you can see, and Vietnam as its neighbors. And you know, this deity here was known as the Deva. And I thought that was really interesting that a guardian angel was known as Deva, because, you know, all too often I come across these ancient names that have been kind of like, that we used to revere, that have been kind of denigrated now. Because when you think of a diva, you don't think of a guardian angel, do you? You don't think of you know, a guardian figure that goes back to ancient times. Anyway, this Angkor Wat location in Cambodia would have been part of the Khmer Empire back in the 9th century or so, possibly a lot earlier than that. And the Angkor civilization is said to have been at the time a huge civilization, similar to the African civilization in Egypt. And it is said that, and it's obvious from these intricacies of these carvings into mountains, that they had the technology, they had science, they had the ability, obviously, you know, to carve these human features into rocks, because they did it. And the testimony of that still stands until today. And nearly all of, I think all of these Asian Angkor sculptures display what looked to me like African features: full lips, broad noses, broad faces. They're wearing elaborate headdresses, just like you would see on the Egyptian pharaohs. You know, if you look at that, do you not see a very similar headdress to what the Egyptian pharaohs wore? And then on some of them, when you look closely, you can see their curly hair at the front. You know, you might leave a little fringe or down the side, and you can see that it's tightly coiled. So this here is a reflection, is it not, of, you know, the people of the time of the Khmer Empire. And they are saying that this goes back between 800 and 1300 AD. So it was part of a civilization in Asia, and that civilization included Cambodia, southeastern Thailand, northern Vietnam. Wow, it was huge. And it was the name of the medieval Khmer capital city. Wow. So look at them for yourself. I mean, a friend of mine went to Angkor and she looked at these statues, and she asked the tour guide, you know, who are these people? What happened to them? And the tour guide said, nobody knows. They are a forgotten people and a forgotten race. Wow. Well, we haven't forgotten them because, you know, when I look at them with my eyes, I can see the Africanness looking right back at me. What do you see in the phenotype family? What do the characteristics look like to you? There will be those who deny that it has anything at all to do with us as Africans, but how am I not looking into the face of an African? Let me know what you think. Let me jump over to the chat for a moment. Oh, I can't believe it's 9 o'clock already. Oh, my days. I did say earlier that I'm going to have to finish a little early today because I've got an event that I need to go to. And then I've also got an early start tomorrow morning as well. And so I will finish a little earlier than usual today. So let me jump over to the chat. Rise up, Brother Kwame. The truth has come to pass indeed. And our sister Karen is making us realize that this would have not only taken skill, but also a huge amount of patience. I can't even begin to imagine the time it must have taken to carve these features into stone. Thanks, Sister Karen. Yes, everybody, please do like and share this platform. Would much appreciate love. And she says, your books are on Amazon, correct? That's right. For my March Earth Day, I will buy this book and maybe another. Thank you so, so much, Sister Karen. Rise up your beautiful, beautiful self. Thank you. Saying that I look blacktastic. Queen Shanice, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for your love and support. You know, much appreciate love. Welcome everybody. Drop me a note in the chat. Let me know that you're in the house, okay? And yeah, let us know how you're feeling the presentation. Let me just scroll that along and see if I've got any more comments down there. Yeah, no more comments. Yeah, drop your comments in the chat as well. Let's go over to the next slide. Now, this slide, when it comes up, oh, here we go. Yes, we get another click. There we go. Now, this beautiful edifice of an ancient architectural marvel. Originally built in Cambodia as a Hindu temple, it says, by the Khmer king Suryavarman II. Suryavarman II. And this would have been built, they said, over about a 30-year period at the beginning of the 12th century. And Angkor Wat is in some ways a temple of two religions. So you've got the ancient Buddha religion, and then you've got the much later Hindu religion as well. And when you look at this statue here, this monument here, and you look at the setting, it looks so peaceful, it looks so tranquil. And, you know, it's just saying, be still, be at peace, you know? Even with his broken nose, it's still carrying centuries and centuries old messages. Look at the headpiece as well, a headdress, and also look above the headdress. What does that look like to you, family? What are we looking at here? This is a Khmer style Buddha head, yeah, from the Khmer civilization, ancient civilization at the Angkor region of Cambodia. And when I look above the headpiece, it looks to me as though, you know, there's a particular style that's coming up from the headpiece, a very deliberate style. What do you think? Do you see the similarity? Or am I just imagining things? Because here we have, you know, the headpiece, the hairstyle that's coming out of this headpiece looks as though it's protruding out of it. And this is a typical African style, you know, the cornrow style where you just put it all up in a bun. And look at the spiritual and cultural meaning of this bun style family that goes back centuries, that goes back thousands of years. Wow, is this a modern likeness family of this ancient hairstyle? You know, they say there's nothing new under the sun. Were our ancestors braiding their hair and coiling it up centuries ago, as we did and as we do today? This isn't a European hairstyle, is it? Not an Asian person's hairstyle either. Let me know your thoughts. Yeah, good question, Sister Betty. Why do they knock the noses off? You know, two reasons I've come across. One, I think is the real reason, and that is to try and hide the fact that, you know, this is the feature of and the characteristics of an African, because our broad noses are unmistakably African, you know. And then another theory that someone's coming up with that they're trying to put out there across the internet is that the nose is where the spiritual breath is meant to be. And if they knock off the noses, then they're knocking out the spiritual powers that the monuments once had. Like, yeah, really. I don't know. What do you think the reasons are, family? Why do you think it is that they keep knocking off the noses of these great monumental edifices? Let me know what you think. Kate Safar's in the house. Rise up, she says. Shanice, I hope you're keeping warm out there in the Gambia, because my black behind has been freezing lately here in New York City. Yes, my dear, I see some images from family in New York. Snore, pantapa, snore, pantapa, snore. Some freak weather conditions over there. Oh, my days. Oh, boy, Kate Safar, there've been heat waves over here. Heat waves. You can just feel the heat in the wind. Oh, my days. I wish I could send some over there to you. Great to have you in the house. Rise up, rise up. So, family, why do you think it is that they keep knocking the noses off of our monuments? Is it because if they left the nose on, it would look like the nose on this beautiful queen's face? So here's another one of the Angkor Thorn monuments. And what we're looking at here, wow, is the face of another beautiful sister queen that's been carved into the rock. This sister queen is this is obviously still, it was still in Cambodia. We're still at the Angkor Thorn site. And you can see here that the Khmer Empire was connected to Africa, even though, you know, it's in Cambodia on the Asian continent. You can see it's connected to Africa, just so we saw India was connected to Africa and the so-called Middle East. You know, Afghanistan is also connected to Africa by these early migrations and by the culture and the spiritual belief system that they took with them. But you know, look at this wonderful, magnificent piece. Are those earrings that she's wearing, you know, on her ears there? And look at the crown that she's got on her head as well. And these are a line of guardians. These would have been gods with a small g guarding, you know, the temple. So in front of the Angkor temple, you've got these lines of goddesses, you know, these guardian angels that were protecting the entrance to the monument. And look at the faces, family. Look at the nose, look at the lips, look at those features. Am I not looking into the face of one of my Asian African sister queens? Rise up, Mother Nature. Good to have you in the house. Still waiting for some of you to let me know your thoughts on why they keep knocking the noses off of our monuments. But here we have an empress, a goddess with her nose. And, you know, we're not just seeing the decorative side of things on these stone heads, but what we're looking at is a part of a sacred city that was built, one of the greatest sacred cities of ancient times. It doesn't get the kudos it deserves, but wow, when you look at all of these faces that have been carved into these stones at the Angkor Temple complex in Cambodia, it is vast. Wow. So this obviously would have been part of the royal city of Khmer, the Khmerian Empire, and the artwork was deliberate. Remember, in the ancient world, all the deities were black, blackety black, as Dr. Clyde would say, black, black, blackety black. They were all black. And we're looking into the face of one of the guardian angels. They just called them guardians, but were they guardian angels? Guarding the path to the spiritual world? And they were also obviously at the heart of the political center of power back in the days as well. So the face that we're looking at here is one of the faces in a row of faces, and all of them have the African nose, the African facial features, and it's part of a massive symbolic scene from the Hindu Buddhist tradition. And it's part of a cosmic story known as the churning of the ocean of milk. Wow. So on one side, you've got the Devas, or the gods or goddesses. See, our Deva was once, you know, a god, a goddess. So on one side, you've got the Devas, the gods or goddesses, and on the other, you've got the Asuras, and they're the opposing forces. And together, they pull on the great serpent, the Naga, representing the struggle that brings order out of chaos and gives birth to the new world. So, you know, these faces, they're not just portraits, and they are not just identifying, you know, any particular individual or the nation of people. They represent greater than that. They represent the spiritual world. They represent the fight that's going on in the spiritual realm. And they're letting us know that we have goddesses who are in the spiritual realm fighting on our behalf. And so that's why, you know, some of us feel we've got these guardian angels that are looking over us and fighting on our behalf. And here we have these huge monumental figures of the Khmer Empire that were representatives of the goddesses that were looking out and looking over the people and fighting, you know, on the great serpents on our behalf. So again, were they part of a bigger connected network in terms of the spiritual belief system? Were they connected to the Bamiyan monuments in Afghanistan, or were they connected at all to, you know, any of the other monuments that we were looking at in India and Asia? What do you think? Again, they're using stone to tell the story. They're using stone as a link to the spiritual world. They're using the stones as temples. They're carving into rocks. Look at these sacred images, you know, not too dissimilar to Egypt, where they had, you know, their goddesses and their, you know, huge monuments that would have surrounded their temples and would have been, you know, like protecting, would have been part of a grand entrance to the temples and the great cities. And their monuments are now in museums, aren't they, all around the European world. But here in Angkor, many of these sacred monuments are still there in situ. But there are many as well in museums around the Asian world. Here we have some more guardian statues. You can see the one on the front, her nose is gone. Why are they taking all of our noses off? Let me see what you've said, Thomas. According to the alien theory, Angkor was built by extraterrestrial. Your thoughts, Sister Shanice? Well, I'm telling you my thoughts and I'm sharing my thoughts with you. These were clearly built by our ancestors. There's no extraterrestrial aliens that come down and built these huge monuments to look like us. You know, this is what they do, Thomas, when something is so incredible and they can't believe that we as Africans actually did something like this, they say it was done by aliens. Even today, you know, all across Africa and the Caribbean, our artisans still have the skill of sculpturing. They're using woods today. Some use stone. When I was in Zimbabwe, you know, there were some wonderful monuments, and huge monuments that they made in stone there. So we still have the tradition and we still have the skills across the continent of Africa today. No, there were no extraterrestrial aliens that come down and did this. This was done by the hands of great artists. Wow, take a look at those faces. Wow. They tell their own story. You can see wisdom. Look at those frown marks, you know, age, wisdom. They've taken all your problems, all your troubles, you know, and you can just leave it there with them. Look at those lips. Look at those big noses of our ancestors. And our women weren't slim either those days either. You know, many of them are depicted as full-bodied, you know, women with their bold features, their broad faces, broad noses, big, thick lips. You know, is this their hair curled going down? Or is this a headdress? You know? And decorative necklace that they're wearing. So this would have been part of maybe an elaborate gown. And, you know, you can see for thousands of years when it comes to dressing and headdress wear and necklaces, our ancestors, we haven't changed much as women. We still like to, you know, do the decorative stuff, don't we? Especially on the continent of Africa, you see many African women, you know, in places like Nigeria in particular, where they've got their elaborate headwear, you know, just rises up and beautiful colors and designs and styles, you know, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so let's jump over to the temple at the Abu Simbel in Egypt. And again, we're seeing some more powerful images that have been carved into the rock. We're more familiar with seeing the rock carvings of Egypt, aren't we? And, you know, we're more familiar with seeing how they carve their rulers and their leaders and their gods and goddesses into the living rock. And these carvings go back centuries as well. This goes back to 13th century BCE, you know, 4,000 years ago. Colossal figures, you know, seated there looking out from the mountain across the world, just representing, you know, kinship, divinity, protection, you know, eternal presence. And here we are thousands of years later, you know, looking at giant Buddha figures of the Bamiyan in Afghanistan that's been carved into the rock cliff faces there, and you know, similar monuments at the Angkor, carved into rock there. So there was clearly a culture, you know, a Stone Age culture when our ancestors were carving huge figures of their gods and goddesses and their rulers. into stone because they believed, you know, in the divine protection of these sacred ones, you know, why they would have had the patience to do all of that work. Wow. So, different continents over thousands of years, different eras, but clearly the same message: power, spirituality, identity, all carved into rock to leave a message for future generations. They were making a global statement, weren't they not? They're making a global statement. You know, we are linked from the rocks cut out of the pharaohs of Egypt to the rock art of the Guardian monuments of the Angkor to the rock art of the Olmec heads in America to the rock arts in the cliffs of Afghanistan with the Buddhas. You know, all around the world, our ancestors were expressing their sacred meaning and showing that through art, through stone, they could live on forever. And here they are as part of the landscape. Wow, family. Okay, because I need to fly, I'm going to leave the presentation there for today. I've got so much more that I want to get through on this topic, family, but time doesn't permit for today. But I hope you are as fascinated and have been as fascinated as I have been, you know, looking at some of these incredible stone art that our ancestors left behind. And when we come back next Wednesday, we're going to start with Vietnam. We're going to look at Vietnam, okay? And again, we're going to see very similar archaeological engravings and monuments carved into stone in ancient times. So keep it locked, family. Certainly hope that you've enjoyed today's presentation. Apologies for having to cut it short. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the chat before I go. Wow. What are the messages you think? What messages do you think our ancestors are leaving for us today? What are they saying to us? Thomas, what are our ancestors saying to us? Mother of Nature, Betty, what are our ancestors saying? Kate Safar, you know, Brother Kwame, what are the messages you think our ancestors are wanted to leave for us in the rock art carvings? What do you think they were trying to say to us back then? I'd really love to hear your thoughts on that. And I did ask you why it was as well. Yeah, thanks, Betty. Why do you think they knock off their noses? What are your thoughts? I've shared with you my thoughts. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me. Maybe if you don't leave your thoughts here in the chat, when you go back, when you give it some thought, leave your thoughts and comments in the description section under this video. I would much appreciate love. It's always wonderful to read your comments. It's always wonderful to know that you're interacting with me. To those of you who've taken the trouble to join me today, thank you so much. Sister Afrojama, as I'm leaving, you're coming, but please do watch back the session. So I've got to fly now, earlier than usual, I know, because I'll need to head out. But thank you so much for joining me today. And as always, you know, I don't take your presence for granted. So please give me a thumbs up, like and share the video, and join me same time next strong as we continue to debunk and demystify our Asian African history, and we begin to look into the faces of some of our forgotten ancestors and try and work out what it was they were saying to us. Oh, let me see, did I just see another message? No more messages. for me today. Okay, well, thank you so much for all the messages that have already come through, and keep it locked to the channel. More love, more strength. Sister Shanice out of here for now. Bye for now.